Okay, cool. So, welcome everybody to this Enneagram lunch webinar. I think a couple of you might even be at work, so thanks for taking your lunch break to come hang out here. This was an idea sort of created through conversations with largely Jim Burns and a bit with John Ball to offer an Enneagram intro. So just for the guys who are here, how many of you were at the recent MROP at Shrinemont? Just raise your hand so because I recognize most, if not all of you, most of you. Yeah, cool. Great. Yeah, that was my first MROP, so that was exciting. Okay, let's get started. I'm planning to go for about 45 minutes, which I admit is the shortest time I've ever tried to introduce the Enneagram, but I'm gonna try to deliver it in a way that you'll get something out of and provide opportunities that maybe this could be a jumping off point to or an entryway into your Enneagram journey, because it really is a journey. Just a couple words about me. So this is me. It's actually in Iceland last October. And my name is Ben Campbell. I am a Enneagram professional. That's my entire career is centered around that. So I'm certified with the Enneagram Institute, which is Don Riso and Russ Hudson's work. Got certified in that a few years ago. And I am also the founder and president of the Northeast affiliate chapter of the International Enneagram Association. So if any of you are located in the Northeast US, basically from DC all the way up through Maine, we're merging with the DC former chapter. We are your local International Enneagram Association chapter. So if you're interested in joining that, it's about $50 a year. And you get access to many well-known Enneagram teachers in the field. So there will be some information about that at the end. But that's me. My niche in the Enneagram is in integrating nature. So this is the vision for Wild Enneagram. We're not going to be talking too much about this today, but if you go into more Enneagram work with me, this will be a bigger part of it. So supporting the wild psyche in modern life, it really fits in with Bill Plotkin's work, Animus Valley, with the nature-based stuff we did at the MROP. And I'm interested in what tools we have access to in order to live a present life in the modern world while not rejecting our inherent wildness. How do we access the gifts of our nature while we live in these square walls and drive to work and relate to each other through the internet? So that's my vision, and I just try to start my talks with that. All right, key objectives for today. I had a quick chat with Jim Burns, and I love these questions, so I'm just throwing them out here. These are the goals today. What is the Enneagram? Why should I care? And how do you work with it? Okay. So right at the front, I'm just curious, how many of you are basically brand new to the Enneagram? Ish. Okay. A few brand new. How many would consider themselves like intermediate? Yeah, I looked at it. Maybe I know my type, but haven't gone in very deep with it. Okay. And how many of you have been studying it for years and it's a key part of how you relate to the world and your journey? Okay, cool. That's it. That's a good mix. All right. Let's jump into this then. Okay. What is the Enneagram? I want to start there because there are some misconceptions about this. Enneagram first is just a word. So it's a Greek word. Ennea means nine, and gram is drawing or picture. So this is my logo, but it's also the Enneagram. So Ennea, it's just this nine pointed symbol. If you don't add anything else to the word Enneagram, Enneagram by itself just means this particular symbol. I'm not going to go into depth in the history, but just so you know, the Enneagram has a mix of ancient and modern roots. It has roots in the Western mystical religious traditions. It has roots in Eastern religious traditions as well. So mystical Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, all of these are part of the underpinning philosophy and spirituality of the Enneagram. Philosophy from ancient Egypt, which itself informed the Abrahamic faiths. And then on the other hand, there is a lot of modern psychology involved as well. So the Enneagram of personality, which is what we focus on and what most people mean when they say Enneagram, it's a modern amalgam. Ancient wisdom, modern psychological knowledge. You put those together, you get a really powerful tool for how to live into your gifts as a human being in the modern world. So here's a quote from the Wisdom of the Enneagram, which, in my view, it's a dense text, but I think it is the single best authority on the subject. It's by Don Rees Hudson. The Enneagram concerns itself with one element that is fundamental to all spiritual paths, self-knowledge. Without self-knowledge, we will not get very far on our spiritual path, nor will we be able to sustain whatever progress we have made. The Enneagram sheds light clearly and non-judgmentally on the aspects of our lives that are unfree. This is the key part here. The Enneagram provides objective information on ourselves that is completely non-judgmental and that you'll have in common with millions of other humans. So my first exposure to the Enneagram was when I was 13, actually, and reading about the type 6 patterns in this book, this Wisdom of the Enneagram book, was super liberating to me even at that age because I could see that my patterns were patterns and it wasn't me being crazy or just an anxious kid, that there were adults who struggle with the same thing and they probably just cover it up in their particular ways. And so it was very freeing. It wasn't telling me, no, you can't be anxious anymore, but it was saying there are patterns to this, there are reasons for this. And the more you learn about it, the more you'll start to see that it is a pattern. Once we start to see the pattern, then we can get some freedom from it. But until we can see it, change isn't going to be able to happen. Well, because we're asleep. We'll talk more about that soon. Okay, here are the 9 types. Some different teachers give different names for the 9 types. These are the names that are assigned by Enneagram Institute information by the Riso Hudson model. As a shorthand, we typically say we just refer to the number rather than the name of the type because numbers are value neutral. One type isn't better than any other type just because you're a 9 or a 1. There's no hierarchy. Okay. So type 1 is the reformer, type 2 the helper, type 3 the achiever, type 4 the individualist, type 5 the investigator, type 6 the loyalist, type 7 the enthusiast, type 8 the challenger, and type 9 the peacemaker. One of the most important concepts in the Enneagram is presence. So this is another part of the why. Why we do this. We talked a lot about presence in different ways at the MROP. It's a big part of spiritual work. It's a big part of Richard Rohr's teachings. Any authentic spiritual path is concerned with presence because it's concerned with how do I access my true nature and actually live embodied in the world with the short time that I have. So the Enneagram concerns itself with presence. How do we tell if we're present? Can be kind of tricky at first, but we have a cheat code, basically. I can scan myself to see how present I am or not. And we do that through what we call the 3 centers of intelligence. And the 3 centers, I didn't write them on here, but the 3 centers are the body center, or our center of sensation, the heart center for feeling, and the head center for thinking. As I check in with my body right now, I start with sensation. And so I actually tap into what does it feel like to have my feet grounded on the floor? I'm noticing that a moment ago, I wasn't aware of sensation. And at the same time, I might have been talking too quickly because I wasn't grounded in my body. Now I've got the ground under me. I can feel it. It'll probably come and go. So one way I can tell if I'm present is through sensation. And I would say that is the first doorway because the body always exists in the now. I can be thinking or feeling something that's not happening right now, right? I can be reacting to a relationship that ended 5 years ago. I can be preoccupied about something that doesn't exist yet in my head. My body is here. So if I can learn to access the moment through my body, that gives me a first step that I can always come back to. And for me personally, I find the feet to be the best place to start. Some people that won't work. It's okay. You want to find something that feels grounding for you. Right? If you can't feel your feet for whatever reason, or you can't walk, or you have trauma associated with your feet, I would suggest finding a different place. For me, my feet typically feel like a safe place, and I can feel them on the ground, and that gives me a sense of support from the earth. So sensation is big. If you don't remember anything else from today, remember to check in with sensation, to have a practice around checking in with that. But I can also tell how present I am based on my feeling and awareness of my feeling specifically. Most of the time, us humans we're caught up in emotional reactivity. We're reacting against external circumstances all the time. We identify with each successive mood, right? I'm happy. I'm hungry. I got annoyed at that person and now I want to go eat some food. And we're just in each state. There's no presence there. And so I'm a robot. I'm reacting. If I actually pause and sense into what am I feeling right now, then I'm more present. I hear um it's pretty common in therapy to, if you're working with something like I have a addiction to food, say, uh, to notice, to have that pause before you go and eat the food, write down everything you're feeling and see if that shifts. Often I might eat because I'm bored or lonely or I don't want to think about something that's on my mind, right? If I'm actually sensing my feeling, then I'm more present. And then thinking, what am I thinking about? There's some quotes that say our 99% of our thoughts are, or I think it's like 85% are repetitive, 90% are negative, something like that. We're thinking all the time. We have this inner narrator, inner judge, inner critique. It's always going. And again, that's okay. Presence is not about stopping things from happening. I'm not trying to force myself into something or fix myself or correct a behavior, but I want to start by arriving with where I actually am. What is going on in my mind right now? If I check in, I think I'm mostly here, but there's also part of me that's looking forward to the sweet potato that I baked that I can eat in about half an hour, right? I'm thinking about going out in the woods. I can see the leaves outside. But if I'm aware of that, I can go, okay, I want to be here. Want to be here. So the Enneagram gives us keys to presence because each of the 9 types has characteristic relationships with these different windows of knowing. We tend to have more access to one, less access to another. We tend to get fixated or identified with one over the other. And if you start doing deep Enneagram work, you'll start to learn those relationships and learn how to arrive in all 3 centers. When I'm present in all 3 centers simultaneously, then I'm really here. Then I'm a full human being. All right, time check. We're doing okay. I'd take like a 2 or 3 minute pause here. Are there any questions so far? Okay, cool. If there are, or if something comes up in between, feel free to put it in the chat. I can answer those when I pause or and invite you to share later. Okay. The fall from presence and the origin of type. So this is an important concept, and it has spiritual underpinnings, but I believe it's reinforced by psychology as well. Uh, when we are babies, we are fundamentally present. We have an undifferentiated consciousness, right? We're so open. We're so receptive. You ever hang out with with a newborn baby and their eye, like they're just taking everything in and they feel what they feel and they sense what they sense and they see what they see and there's no attachment to it, right? Like I'm hungry, so I cry. I get fed, I stop crying. Mom makes a funny face, so I laugh. It's just this pure expression of presence. It would be nice, perhaps, if we could maintain that direct access to presence as we grow up, but that's never what happens because life is more complicated than that. And over time, things start to happen where I need to close myself off, where my needs aren't met. And they could be really simple things. Like I was hungry and my mom was 5 minutes late with the milk. To the baby, that feels like infinite. Like I am going to die. I'm going to starve right now. Maybe I'm left alone for too long. You could have almost perfect parents. It doesn't matter. You're going to experience contraction over contraction over contraction. And as you grow up, more things are going to happen. Maybe you get bullied. Maybe someone close to you dies. Maybe you get an injury. Maybe someone teases you. All of these little things, they contract us bit by bit. Actually, one of the metaphors we use at the um, authorized workshop is it's the crumpled paper demonstration. So the crumpled paper, this is the baby's undifferentiated consciousness, and then over time things happen, and you start getting increases. Mom's late with the milk, you get bullied. I don't have the food that I need, and eventually, by the time I'm maybe 5 or 6, this is my consciousness. It's this warped ball. Because I'm trying to feel safe, right? It's protective. This protects me. If I didn't have this, that would be bad news, right? So I need this. We want to be really grateful for the mechanisms that we have. The issue is that I identify with being this, right? This is how I think I need to be. I don't realize there are other ways to be. So this is the robot self. It's the automatic self. It's the conditioned self. In Richard Rohr's language, this is the false self, right? And believing that this is me. We can even draw we can draw a little happy face on it. And we go into the world and we're being mom or dad or an employee and we're fine. My teacher, Michael Naylor, who some of you might have met, he draws a sad face on it for a couple types whose orientations in the world tend to be like, wow, this sucks, and I'm gonna like screw you. I'm not happy about this. But at least I'm realistic about it. On you Pollyanna dummies, right? Okay. So this is the fall that happens. And if we don't have resources or teaching or presence, this is the way we stay. But when we have a tool like the Enneagram, or we start to work on ourselves in therapy, or we go to things like the rites of passage, or we work with a spiritual mentor, we start working through our addictions, gradually we can open this back up and it hurts, right? Like, ugh, do I have to do that? That doesn't feel safe. But gradually we learn it's okay. And when we're done, we have this beautiful canvas with unique differentiated lines, but we're able to access all of our full potential, right? We can go be in the world as ourselves. So this is what the Enneagram helps us move to. I'll get into the origin of the type when we get to the types. So, all right. This is directly related to that previous slide. I'm going to go through each of the types. I'm going to talk about it from the perspective of where they come from, and then how they operate in the world as a result. So, while we do enter the world as undifferentiated consciousness, we also have an affinity for a particular gift. There was a study, maybe at this point, 30 years ago, showing that babies had 9 distinct temperaments even before they were born. Russ Hudson, is my primary teacher, calls that temperament the superpower. But we have a natural affinity for certain qualities, and we call those essential gifts. Essential in the sense that they are essential to us. They cannot be, they can't be destroyed. We don't generate them. The gifts come from presence itself. They're aspects of reality, of God, if you want, of your spirit. But you'll have a particular affinity and love for one of those. That's your superpower. Yeah, Joe might be gone, but there will be a recording, and I I can talk about the animus map maybe at the end. It's an interesting question. So each type has a gift. Now imagine a little eight who comes into the world. The gift in the eight, and feel free to write this down. So I didn't write out every single gift. I didn't want to have too much clutter. The gift for the eight is strength and aliveness. Eights have this natural affinity for strength and aliveness, which is a quality of presence. It's not something I have to generate. It's just, all right, this thing flows through me. And when I'm in the moment and present, I'm connected to that gift and it flows freely through me. I'm a manifestation of that. But as it always goes, I get separated from that because life is complicated. And the effect of being separated from our essence is what we call the primal catastrophe. It is the worst possible thing that can happen. Imagine the most important thing to you, being strong and real and alive, is taken away. The result is a fear. We actually call a basic fear, a fundamental fear. And the fear is always directly related to the loss of the gift. And for the eight, the loss of strength and aliveness creates the fear of being weak, of being vulnerable, of being destroyed. But I notice I have this temperament, this superpower. I think, oh, okay, I have certain qualities of toughness and audacity and tenacity, and I'm connected with my body's energy. And those things seem like they're going to be able to reconnect me with the gift. And it's true. It can that is close to the gift in a certain way. So the personality forms around these gifts. It says, oh, in order to feel strong and alive again, I have to be confident. I have to be assertive. I have to be strong in whatever sense that means in my family and my culture. I have to be those things in order to get back to this essence gift because that is everything to me, right? If I don't have that, then the worst is going to happen. What this eventually leads to is that we turn our gift into our identity. And everything kind of goes downhill from there. I turn a gift into an identity, which means instead of confidence and assertiveness and all of these beautiful qualities being choices or possibilities for me, they become necessities. They become the only option in order for my false self to feel okay in the world. So I get stuck in this pattern of feeling like I have to be that all the time. And when I don't, I beat myself up. And I feel like I need to compensate and make up for that and fix that and get back to that. So I wind up in this very limited, narrow range of my human possibility. I can't do anything that feels like it's not being strong, confident, assertive. I can't show vulnerability. I can't have access to my feelings. I can't show any kind of weakness or gentleness. And eights are these people with beautiful, big hearts. They're uh, truly compassionate people, but I feel stuck in having to do this thing to protect myself from what my personality thinks is the worst possible outcome. So that is how the trajectory works in every single type, but with their own gift, their own fear, their own superpower. Does that make sense as a sequence? Yeah. So the journey of growth for every type has to do with noticing the things that I feel I have to be And those things are the traits that are listed in a type chapter if you want to go and read a type chapter. Noticing how you feel you have to be those things, and then consciously choosing when possible to do otherwise. And there are plenty of techniques you can offer to start to practice that. So basically, the journey is learning to do the thing that your personality doesn't want to do. So eights need to practice vulnerability. And if you ask an eight, that is the last thing that they're going to want to do. That's what it takes. That's called the path of transformation. And when we do that, we find that our gift is right on the other side of that. So in the eight, true strength and true aliveness, feeling the world is right on the other side of vulnerability. The thing that I want most is right there. Okay, I'm going to go through the other types briefly now, since you have the main pattern, and there will be plenty of information you can use to follow up if you like. The type 9, the gift is wholeness and being, like, and unity here. I have that. The loss of that gift leads to the fear of being disconnected, of being fragmented, separated, cut off. The superpower that I have is this ability to um, play well with others, to be neutral, to be kind, to be friendly, nice, to not rock the boat. My ego contracts around that. I feel I have to be that. And now I can't do anything that might risk upsetting the peace that I've created. I can't do anything that might make someone mad at me. Nines tend to be very conflict averse. But what nines need, their path of transformation, is to remember what they really want and what they really need and to speak that into the world. And I do apologize. I'm going to have to go through these pretty quickly so we can have some time. So know that you'll be able to watch the recording and you can capture these words after, or I can maybe send a document with the words too. So don't feel like you have to write everything down. Type 1, the gift is goodness and sacredness, qualities of presence. I don't have to create those. But when I get cut off from those, the fear is that I am bad, I am corrupt, the sacred has disappeared. That's a huge loss. How do I get back to that? The one notices, oh, I've got these gifts of integrity and a sense of righteousness and self-discipline. And so I contract around those things and feel I have to be those things. Because if I don't, then the worst thing is going to happen. What if I'm a bad person? Can't be a bad person. So I get contracted around that. But that's limiting because it's based on what my ego's idea, my false self's idea of goodness and sacredness is, which is pretty small by definition. I get into a pattern of judging this is good and it's okay to be that, and this is bad and it's not okay to be that. And it gets narrower and narrower the less present I am. So the path of transformation for the one we say is acceptance. Can I accept every part of me? And can I accept all the parts of the world, even the ones that I find difficult to accept? One practice that I've done around this, a nature-based practice, is uh, being with what I would consider an invasive species and trying to find what is getting curious. Why is this here? What is good about this? What is sacred about this? This thing that I think shouldn't be here, this thing that is wrong, right? Okay, the next three types, type 2, 3, 4. Type 2, well, the helper, their gift is love and sweetness. So they're connected to the flow of love and sweetness in the universe. The loss of that gift feels like being unloved, unlovable. For the 2, that's an intolerable loss. So the personality reacts against it. And I notice I have these superpowers of being helpful and generous and kind and supportive and attuned to other people and conscious of their needs. And so I feel I have to be those things. Those seem to be the thing that's going to get me back to love and sweetness. But I contract around that, and it leads to me neglecting myself to the point where I'm unable to truly serve myself or anybody. And I feel less loved the more I do that. The thing we think is going to work never works. And when it doesn't work, if we're not present, we do it harder. That's why the self-knowledge is so important, the self-observation. If I don't see what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing the same thing, and I might just intensify it and then wonder why the results aren't changing. Type 3, the gift is value, glory. And it's like, it's this fundamental sense that I am, therefore I am valuable. There is nothing, again, value is not something to be created. It's something that's inherent to my existence. But when I get cut off from that, the fear is that I'm empty, worthless, empty of value, which is intolerable for the 3. So I contract around that. And the superpower that I notice in the 3 space that the personality grabs onto and identifies with is I'm exceptional. I'm talented. I pick things up quickly. I'm very effective. I'm efficient. I can achieve things. And so I get stuck around that and feel like I have to achieve. I have to achieve. And if I don't, then I'm worthless. The path for the 3, the word we use is honesty. You could also say authenticity, but it's honesty in the sense of what actually nurtures my heart. Slowing down enough, giving myself enough space to let that question simmer. So it's also just being willing to sit with my own heart, which to the 3's personality, which is saying, get off your butt and keep doing something, you worthless piece of meat, blah, 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 doesn't want to do that. Yet that's what I need the most. And I will find that that sense of value comes not from doing, but from being with myself, noticing the inherent value that's already here. It's already been created. There's nothing I could possibly do that would increase value. Nothing. Type 4, the gift is about true identity. Could also say depth, could also say beauty. Sense of, yeah, like mystery. When I get cut off from that, there's this loss of depth, loss of sense of self, and that's intolerable to the 4. The world seems suddenly superficial, and I feel empty of any personal significance. For the 4, there is a terror around not having any personal significance. So my personality tries to step in to protect me from that, and it notices I have these superpowers of being creative and self-expressive and artistic and romantic and um, interested in depth and beauty. I have certain tastes, certain aesthetics. And so I turn those things into my identity. Like, I don't see it as an option. I see it as this is what I have to do. I have to be unique. I have to be special. I have to be different, which ironically pigeonholes me into a very narrow window of being where I'm hardly able to express my true self or authenticity at all. I cut things out that are true about me if they seem too common or too shallow. It could be something like, I actually really love football or I love pop music, but I can't do that because that's too basic. That would be too, wouldn't lend itself to my identity. Okay, type 5, 6, and 7, the final 3 types here. Type 5's gift, we say clarity or illumination, which is just, it's a direct knowing, an understanding of the world. But when I get cut off from that, the feeling is of confusion, senselessness, being lost in senselessness in a world that makes no sense. It's chaotic. And that's terrifying for the 5. So they're trying to figure out, how can I feel okay in the world? How do I know what I need to know? And the gift in the 5 is I notice I have a a sharpness. I have an ability to acquire information. Maybe I'm good at memorizing. I see how things work. I understand layers of things, how things tick. I'm interested in systems and knowledge. I might learn quickly or learn deeply. I can focus really well. A type 5 ego contracts around that. Now I have to be those things. I have to be smart. I have to be the smartest in the room. I have to be intelligent. I have to be an expert, a master at a particular thing, because if I don't feel competent enough to be here. So fives get trapped in this place where uh, well, the other piece of it is I don't feel okay to be in the world until I know enough about the world. So I try to study the world from a distance until I understand it enough to operate in it. But if you ever tried to do that, it doesn't work. The story I always tell about this is when I was living abroad in Japan. I would try to learn enough Japanese in my bedroom at home so I would feel okay going out and interacting with the Japanese people who were surrounding me all the time. It never helped. What I needed was to be engaged. That's how I would learn how people actually talk, right? And in the five space, we can kind of take it to extremes. Like how can I you know, figuring out a theory of friendship or armchair commentating on life instead of participating in it. And so my knowledge always remains one step removed from reality, and therefore I never get the knowledge that would help me feel okay. Type 6, the gift is awakeness, guidance, and support, trusting myself. The separation from it is a loss of guidance and support and trusting myself. And that's terrifying. This is my home base type, by the way, type 6. I lose inner guidance. Now the thing is, what the heck do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know who to trust. I don't know what my orientation is. It feels like the ground has been ripped out from under me, and I have to figure out a way to be in this world. And what I notice is that I'm loyal, I'm dependable, I'm responsible, I'm organized, and I'm trustworthy. The personality takes those things and contracts around that. It's like, okay, you have to be that. You can't be other than that. So sixes get trapped in not being able to make decisions on their own without checking in with people, not being willing to let other people down who they feel dependent on. So they can feel stuck between many different sources and can start to spin themselves into anxious vortexes. Been in plenty of those. And I realized I stopped sharing the paths of transformation, but I can share. I'll finish the seven and then I'll go briefly back through those. Type seven, the gift is joy and freedom. And again, those aren't conditional things. They're just part of being present. When I get cut off from them, the world feels like a joyless place and a limited, restricting place. I need to reconnect with my sense of freedom. How do I do that? Well, as a seven, I notice I have these qualities of spontaneity, exuberance. I'm good at bringing people along for adventures. I have an adventuresome spirit. I can see possibilities for the future. I'm very good at um, ideation. Like here's some fun things that could happen, keeping my options open. But my personality contracts around I need to have possibilities. I need to have choices, options all the time to the point where, whoops, um, to the point where I am no longer in any experiences I'm in because I'm so preoccupied with what other options there are. And so this sense of finding joy and freedom and being fulfilled in the moment never happens because I'm never in the moment. I'm always living in another moment. And then I wonder why I feel empty. All right, so going in reverse for these paths, the path of transformation for seven is gratitude. Could also say slowing down or patience. What is joyous and free about this moment? For the type six, it's trust and quiet mind, finding space for myself to settle, slow down, quiet. For the type five, it's making contact in the world, but how are some ways I can make contact and share myself with the world? Um, Type 4 is forgiveness, which I'm not quite gonna unpack all the way here, but I get stuck in negative comparisons as a 4 and tend to blame circumstances for feeling like I'm stuck in suffering. And there are having a practice of forgiveness is very important as a 4. Okay, I think I mentioned the path for the 3 is honesty. The path for the 2 is self-nurturing, giving time to myself to nurture myself. Twos who are in growth will carve out space specifically for them to have alone time, creative time, self-nurturing time. I think that's all of them. Let me see what else. Okay. I'm aware of the time. We're at about 12:46. So we are scheduled to go until 1 Eastern. Are there I know about the Animus Valley question. I might save that for another time. It's kind of complicated and it's not a one-to-one map. That's the summary. Enneagram is base 3 and Animus maps are base 4. So it's a law of 4 model, and they don't overlap one to one. They have different uses. Animus maps are based in finding place. A lot of indigenous maps are base 4, so it's the cardinal directions. Where am I in the earth? This Enneagram is base 3, which is more about a spiritual home. So you'll find base 3 in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, um, uh, underworld, middle world, upper world, right? Um, and the hero's journey as well. 1 stage, 2 stage, 3 stage. So there's, I guess I did answer the question, at least in my own sense, but it's not a one-to-one map. Okay, are there questions about the Enneagram types? Let's see. Could you
And
explain
Bill,
go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. This is very interesting. So, could you briefly say how we deal with the fact that many of us probably have characteristics that could be more than one type?
Yeah. Yeah. So you everyone has one home base type that seems to be proven over and over time. You might not know what it is at first, but eventually we land in one. We absolutely have all 9 types within us, though. And when you're starting out, if you don't know your type, I would start with the first 2 or 3. Like maybe here's what I would recommend is to start with a test, but don't take the test as gospel. Start to study the top 2 or 3 results and see what feels true. Maybe you hang out with people who are sure of their type and you're like, am I in this tribe or not? That can be helpful. Um, yeah, all of us have all 9 types. I've noticed in my own journey, my home base type tends to be the loudest. But the more I work on that and the quieter it gets, the more I can hear the other things that have been secondary or tertiary. So I've worked on my 6 patterns for a long time. It's been about 15 years. But I notice more and more of my 5 patterns coming out, and they often cause me suffering. And my type 9 patterns too. Both of them are withdrawing types, and I can see how I've damaged my relationships with 5 patterns and 9 patterns. We kind of want to just stay with what is getting me into trouble most often, and can I start to catch myself in the act of that? This phrase here, to catch myself in the act, it's great to have hindsight, like to notice, oh, I was really in my ego at lunch. And that's usually where we start. Eventually, when we catch ourselves in the moment of doing it and realize, I don't actually want to do that, or there's a different way to be, that's when transformation starts to happen quickly. And the more clear my self-awareness is, so the more deeply I know my patterns, the more often I'm going to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Andrew asked if I could explain the fall. So the fall I'm referring to is the separation from presence that happens. That was the crumpled paper thing, is the separation. I use the term the fall because in my opinion, I think this aligns with Richard's opinion and Russ Hudson's as well. I think I got it from Russ. Is that fall that we talk about in Christianity, like the fall from heaven or out of perfection, is actually the fall out of presence, which happens in every single life. It didn't happen thousands of years ago, and now humanity as a whole is trying to fix it. It's our fall from heaven is our fall out of connection with source each and every moment. And the reconnecting to that is a matter of, I mean, it's here, right? It's always here. It's not trying to get somewhere else. That's probably the one bad part about the language of the fall. I'm not trying to get back up there. Richard likes to say, grace pools at the bottom. There's no ladder to climb. The bottom of the ladder is where we want to be. But does that answer the question, Andrew?
Yes, thank you. I was curious if that differentiated between the types, but thanks for explaining that again.
Yeah, it doesn't really differentiate between the types. We're sensitive to one particular. All of the gifts are aspects of presence. And if I'm a given type, I'm especially sensitive to the loss of one of those aspects. I lose all of them, but one of them bothers me the most.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other other questions about this right now?
I have a question.
Yeah, Oswaldo.
So how we end up, how do we end up in one particular predominant base type? Is it like sexual orientation that are you are born attracted to that gender or this other gender, or is based
Hmm.
on socialization?
There are some conflicting theories on that. The prevailing one, I believe, is that we are born with our type, so it's not a result of nurturing. Whether it's predestined by some spiritual source or whether it's completely random what one you're born with, I definitely don't have an answer to that. But as we progress as adults, like develop an ego, the temperament that we're born with informs how we respond to the situation. It's not the situation that causes the temperament. So, for example, if I had a volatile parent and if I'm an eight, I'm going to react to that with assertiveness and aggression and confidence and macho and trying to deal with it that way. If I were a two, though, I would be trying to take care of the volatile parent's needs in order to protect myself. They have the same external circumstance, but the coping strategy is different. It's not caused by it. That's the prevailing theory. But some people do disagree with that.
In practical terms, it doesn't matter, it seems, in terms of our growth.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It might just be helpful to our parents, I guess. Like it's not my parents' fault that I'm a six. Right? They didn't screw up in some particular way that turned me into a six. I coped with the mistakes that they made in my six way. So I guess it could matter in the sense that it might help you move toward forgiving your parents for certain things. Anyone else? Is it Bob or Tom? Do you have something? Okay,
I have a question, Ben.
sure.
I took the Enneagram looks like about 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And I was wondering, do you recommend redoing that again now after
Hmm.
4 years, or how best to go forward?
How best to go forward? It's a good question to wrap up the presentation, actually. So you can definitely take the test again. You don't have to take the ready test if you don't want to. That's the most comprehensive. That's the $10 test you can get from the Enneagram Institute. This book has a short quest at the beginning. which is like a 2-page quiz. And I probably, if you're not sure where you're at, I would probably start there. And then you can take those results to an Enneagram coach. I do offer typing sessions, but a lot of therapists and spiritual directors, or if you have friends in um, Illuman who know more about it, you could bring your results to them and have a conversation. There might also be possibility for us to have a Illuman Enneagram cohort going forward, where we can have conversations about that. So yeah, nothing wrong with starting with a test, and then you can that'll give you a place to start. Likely you'll have 1, 2, or 3 primary things to look at.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. I have one final resource to share with you. I can send this out as a PDF, or actually I can send you all the slides if you like. But these are called spiritual jump starts. They're from the Wisdom of the Enneagram. These are things that all of us do. All of us do all of these, but they're specific to type, and you're going to do that one more often than usual. So if you want to start practicing something right away around catching yourself in the act, these are things to look at. And I'm not going to read them all right now, but I will send you this resource. We're already doing reflections. Yeah, next steps. I've already talked about some of these. Possibility for a cohort with Illumin. I've been talking a bit to Jim about that, so we'll see. We can send a follow-up to you all and see like who's interested in this. Maybe I'll do a second round of this free talk and start to see who might want to be involved. I'm also happy to come do custom workshops for groups. A couple resources to sign up for that are free. You can go to the Enneagram Institute and sign up for their daily Enneathought. So they'll send you a type specific recommendation. You can sign up for up to 2 different types, I think, on there, and you'll get it delivered. So that's another way if you're caught between 2 types. Maybe I don't know if I'm a 3 or a 9. Sign up for the type 3 and the type 9. You'll get them both in your inbox. And over time, you'll notice, oh yeah, that one really hits. Right? If you read it and part of you goes, oh no, that's a good sign. I have a newsletter as well. You can sign up for that, especially if you're interested in the nature intersection. I do nature and soul-based Enneagram coaching. And if you really want to have a deep dive, I do a 5-month training program, which happens twice a year. The next enrollment with that one's not till late February, but that's a possibility. It's a weekly class. We go through this entire book. It's usually a cohort of 12 to 15. And I love having men in that group. The Enneagram world is dominated by women, and it's great when I can get other men to participate in this. It really shifts the energy, as I'm sure you guys are aware. So